Hi girlies! Strap in because I've remembered another obscure piece of media that I've never heard anyone else talk about. Between 1995 and 1996, in the age of the VHS, we had the iconic lineup of Starla, Fallon, and Tamara, the legendary warriors who used their magic to protect the world of Avalon. In an era after the new She-Ra, and while girly media is still so very to the forefront of our minds, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a reboot of Starla and the Princesses of Power. Guess I'll have to do it. For those of you who are not familiar, the original show was set in a world inspired by the Arthurian legends, King Arthur, Merlin, and all that jazz. And actually, it's led to the main character having a weird Layla Aisha name confusion, where in some versions the main character is Guinevere, named after King Arthur's wife, and in some versions she's Starla. I remember Starla, so that's what I'm calling her. Speaking of, just before we get into it, I'm fairly sure I remember the show pronouncing it Tamara, but I remember promo material pronouncing it Tamara. I'm going to go with Tamara. Anyway, long before the main story of the show takes place, Merlin and Morgana battled for the fate of Avalon. Merlin defeated Morgana and is now aided by generation after generation of jewel riders to protect the city of New Camelot. Starla is the future queen of Avalon, who is adventurous, romantic, and wields the Sunstone, which is the power of light and goodness, just to remind you that they're magical girls. Her magical animal, because of course they all have a magical animal, is a winged unicorn called Sunstar. Fallon is Starla's tomboyish bodyguard who wields the Moonstone, which has powers of movement and illusion. I know what both of those words mean individually. Not really sure what that means in context. She rides a unicorn called Moondance. Tamara is spiritual and empathetic and is Fallon's good friend, as the historians call them. She wields the Heartstone, which does healing magic and talking to animals, obviously. Her magical animal is obviously a zebracorn. Sure, why not? His name is Shadow Song. This show is honestly such a real 90s let's make whatever will sell toys world, honestly. It's great, it's camp, whatever. The main villain's name is literally Lady Kale. I mean, I'd be evil too, to be honest. Her sister's name is Anya, but she's Kale? This is some Lion King BS, honestly. She believes herself to be the rightful ruler, and naturally also, she wields the Dark Stone with ambiguous dark powers. And she inherited it from Morgana. Duh. Obviously, something this camp and cringe is immaculate and I would never want to change it, but the purpose of this video is to pitch the idea of a reboot, so what do we do to update this? The vibe I'm imagining is kind of like Nimona. Andy Stevenson did She-Ra, which is exactly what I want Starla to be. And in Nimona, they created these medievalist, futurist, combination cityscape looks, which I think really suits the vibe of a place called New Camelot, right? But given the color palette of Starla herself, I think where the settings of Nimona have a gold, white, black, and red palette, New Camelot would be a little bit more on the She-Ra side of things and give a bit more of a Barbie vibe. Lots of pink, lots of purple. I think also if I were to redo this, I would really emphasize the Arthurian stories. It would actually give me an excuse to finally research into some of those legends. And basically what I'm saying is I want to give Starla a sword and make her yank it from a stone. That's what I'm saying, obviously. I've designed my take on their before versus after transformation outfits because I remember finding the looks a little underwhelming. My inspirations were She-Ra, like I mentioned, Power Rangers, unsurprisingly, and of course Barbie. My version of Starla takes her being described as a romantic and adventurous and pushes that almost into an Indiana Jones kind of territory. I thought about Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell in The Mummy for a romantic action hero vibe. To update her character a little bit, I want to give her a little bit of growing to do. being trained to be a future queen, and preparing to take on her mother's jewel rider title has made her somewhat haughty. She's not refusing the call to adventure, she just has to get knocked down before she learns true leadership. Also, something that will add to Starla's character especially is I'm updating the plot a little bit to be less black and white. Kale, who in my name would have the name Kalia, which matches Anya so much better, wouldn't be like a true evil for no reason, just wants to take over the world type thing. I want her to be a little bit more complex and nuanced. I want Starla to have conflict because maybe her aunt has some good ideas. She's still going to be a powerful, sexy villainess, don't get me wrong, just maybe in a slightly different way. I hinted earlier that my update to Fallon and Tamara is that they're girlfriends now. Starting with Fallon, the first thing that I want to say is that the weird, light-eyed, mystical, dark-skinned person trope is kind of problematic. So on that note, I would personally update her design to be a little bit more explicit in terms of referencing an actual real-life human race. Personally, based on what we do see in the show, I interpret her design as being black and South Asian. And again, using She-Ra, we can use Natasha and Mermista as an influence. Personality-wise, I used a few Zendaya outfits to convey an edgy, no-nonsense attitude. She has strong connections to the Pack, who are an all-male group in the show. They're basically the specialists from Winx Club, but with wolves. With that in mind, I've leaned a little into androgyny for her. With Tamara, I don't even remember at this point. And if I look it up, no matter what they tell me it's pronounced as, I'm going to think they're wrong. But the main style that I gave her was getting rid of that ging Power Rangers skirt. Like I mentioned, I want her and Fallon to be together, probably by the end, so I used some lesbian fashion influences to update her a little, as well as her fellow pink-haired girlie, Tekna. One of her main traits is that she's the animal lover, and instead of a feminine Snow White Fluttershy style of animal girl, I'm taking Tamara into more of a Bindi Irwin wild child angle. But in contrast, she's still prim and proper and an etiquette expert to keep kind of true to the original. With Kalia, I don't want to go down the hey look she's evil route, where she barely has any connections to her sister Anya and she barely looks like her. Again, we're not doing Scar here. I think having the sisters look more alike, A, makes selling the idea of them being twins easier, and B, also makes the complicated politics of Avalon more obvious. But to keep the design obvious, I'll keep her red theme in contrast to Anya's blue, and I would make her style more severe to contrast Anya's flow. And that's it. I don't really have much detail to a plot for this one, but I really wanted poor old Starla to have her day in the sunstone. Sorry. It's been 30 years. She's overdue. Comment down below if you have any other old forgotten media that you want to get a little love. And subscribe for slightly closer to regularly scheduled programming next time. Bye girlies!